So Nintendo is stepping back into the world of virtual reality, and yes, it flopped when they did it in the 90s, and the second time they did some weird cardboard thing. But this time, well, absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's Sunday, so let's get sensational. I'm Mike, and I'm back to talk about the gaming news. And before we hop into the news, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. Yes, I did get a new microphone, if you noticed, and this is my first use of it, so I'm still dialing it in, so we'll see what happens. And also, Nintendo did have a Direct on Friday, and they finally announced the release date for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and it's coming out on December 4th. So my friend can finally continue life knowing that the game is coming out in 2025, barely. But that's not the main story I want to cover from Nintendo's announcements, because what I really like covering is news about cool gaming hardware. And this news, there's hardware involved. So if you're not aware, Nintendo back in the 90s had a VR headset called the Virtual Boy that was a huge flop. Now, to be honest, I never tried it, and it's always been one of those things that I've been kind of curious about. And if you're like me, you'll soon get a chance to experience the Virtual Boy, as Nintendo has announced that they're adding Virtual Boy games to Switch Online starting February 17th of next year. Now, the Virtual Boy didn't really have a huge library. It had 14 games that were released in the US, and those are all coming, just not on February 17th. They said they're going to be adding games over time, which is normal for the Switch Online service. Now, of course, you're going to need some kind of headset to play these games. And when it comes to the hardware, they're going to be releasing a plastic Virtual Boy recreation. That's basically a stand that you can slot your Switch 1 or Switch 2 into to play these games. And they're also going to be releasing a cheaper cardboard model after the plastic one comes out. It's going to be similar to the Labo thing they did with the Switch 1. So when it comes to pricing, the full-size plastic one is going to be $100, and the cardboard version is going to be $25. Now, the Virtual Boy may not have been the most popular thing that Nintendo made, but I think it is cool that they're finally providing people a way to play those games. Now, the main criticism I have when it comes to this whole thing is it would be nice to have a way to buy the games instead of them just being part of Switch Online, especially because you need to have another peripheral to play them. So if a person decides not to subscribe to Switch Online, it pretty much makes that stand useless. And speaking of subscriptions, Xbox is adding another partner to their Game Pass streaming platform. So Xbox seems to be branching out, and since they claim that everything is an Xbox, they have partnered with LG, but not for their TVs because that was already a thing, but for their car infotainment systems. That's right, the Xbox is a car now. Well, if you have a car with LG's infotainment system. They haven't really announced which cars it's coming to, but yeah, I guess if you want to play Xbox in the car, that's going to be a thing now. Of course, this doesn't work while you're driving. It's pretty much illegal in the US and I think in most countries, but there are certain use cases for something like this. As someone who drives an EV, when I have to use a public fast charger, which isn't very often, but sometimes you might be there for 20 or 30 minutes depending on how long you need to charge. So I could see that being a use case for it. Now, the quality of the streaming is yet to be seen because I really don't know how well it's going to work over a car cellular connection or even a cell phone's hotspot. But either way, Xbox is coming to a whip near you. I'm not doing that again. All right, it's that time of the week where we talk about layoffs, and I'll admit somehow I completely missed this story last week, but Firaxis has been hit by layoffs. So Firaxis is a 2K studio. They're probably best known for the Civilization series. They released Civilization 7 earlier this year, and those games typically do pretty well, but I guess not well enough for them to have some of their staff cut. So these layoffs weren't officially announced at first. They made the cuts, and then some of the staff that had been cut started posting online about it. And then 2K finally made a statement confirming that jobs were indeed cut at Firaxis. And basically they're claiming it's because the studio is restructuring and optimizing its development practices. Whatever that means. They didn't say how many people were affected by the layoffs or if they're offering any kind of support to the affected employees, which I really hope they are. It just kind of seems like they really wanted to just sweep the whole thing under the rug. But 2K wasn't the only one with layoffs, as Ubisoft has announced that they've cut some more staff. So I believe we talked about it earlier this year, but Ubisoft is forming a new subsidiary with Tencent to manage Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. And in preparation for this new subsidiary, they've decided to cut 9 jobs from their publishing team. So Ubisoft put out a statement and basically said that with the formation of their new subsidiary, they had to move some people to other roles within the company, but ultimately they had to eliminate 9 jobs from their publishing team. They did mention that they are providing support for the employees during the transition. This one isn't great, but it's not out of the ordinary when it comes to big companies making wide changes like this. So I doubt this will be the last set of layoffs due to them forming this new company. But if you have a company, it may not exist anymore if you wind up in court with Nintendo. So we got a couple of stories about Nintendo's latest legal outings, starting with Genki. So if you haven't heard this story, the accessory maker Genki bought a mock-up of the Switch 2 to CES back in January to show off their accessories. And of course, this was before the console was even officially announced. Now, even though the mock-ups and pictures had leaked online at this point, this got a lot of media attention because, I mean, they were able to go to Genki's CES booth and hold what apparently was a mock-up of the Switch 2. Unfortunately for Genki, it wasn't just the media that visited them, as Nintendo sent their legal thugs, the lawyers, over to their booth. And I haven't confirmed, but I'm pretty sure what happens in that scenario is Tupac's All Eyes on Me plays over the loudspeakers, the thugs come up, they do a little shakedown or whatever. Well, shortly after that, Nintendo sued them, and now we have the results of the case. So basically, Nintendo and Genki have settled, and the terms of the settlement are that Genki can't use any of Nintendo's branding or anything that even looks similar. Basically, they have to make it clear that their accessories are unlicensed. It's also noted that Genki denied having obtained a Switch 2 early, and they likely paid Nintendo some money for damages, but that has not been disclosed. But considering how things worked out, I'm sure Genki was willing to settle because it probably could have been a lot worse for them. But while Nintendo was fighting Genki in court, they were also getting approved for a new patent that's probably going to keep them in court. So this was initially reported by the site GamesFray, but Nintendo has filed and been approved for a very broad patent in the US around summoning mechanics in games. And this patent covers things like a game that's played on PC or console where you can summon a sub-character that you can give commands to during a battle or even when there's no enemy on screen, and it also covers commanding that sub-character to go to a different location. So basically any game where you can summon something. Now, the Video Games Chronicle article mentions that just because Nintendo has a patent in the US doesn't mean that they have to go after everyone who has those mechanics in their games. It's not like a trademark where they can lose it if they don't fight infringements. So that doesn't mean that they're going to go after Square Enix, for example, for having summons in a Final Fantasy game, but they could, at least in the US, and that's kind of scary. But the most likely scenario is Nintendo filed this to go after games like Power World and other games they deem to be Pokemon knockoffs. Either way, I don't think them getting this patent is going to be great for the gaming industry. But you know what else isn't great? Apparently the storage speeds of the Switch 2 game cards, and that's what we're talking about today in our final story. So there's been a lot of discourse recently around the Switch 2 game keycard situation, aka the cards that don't have the game on them and act as a digital key to basically download them. But one game that released recently on Switch 2 that uses a game keycard is Star Wars Outlaw, but they're claiming they did it for a technical reason. So one of Ubisoft's developers, Rob Banton, who works on audio for the Snowdrop engine, which is the engine that Outlaw uses, posted about why they went with a game keycard. Basically, he said it wasn't because of the cost of storage, but because of the storage speed. He said while the transfer speeds of the Switch 2 cards are faster than the Switch 1, that they're still not as fast as the console's internal storage. And since the game was designed for a lot of the assets in the open world to be streamed off of an SSD, that they needed faster storage for that to work properly. Now, he does go on to say that if the game was built for the ground up for Switch 2 instead of it just being a port, that they may have been able to find a way to work around it. But basically, the choice was made for that particular reason, that the storage wasn't fast enough on the card. Obviously, this won't be the case for every game, even an open world game, because Cyberpunk, for example, runs off of the Switch 2 game card, but that could be a limitation that some ports run into, especially if they're designed for PS5 or Xbox, where all of the games run off of an SSD. But like the Ubisoft developer mentioned, this probably isn't going to be an issue with games built for Switch 2, because they're going to be able to account for the storage speeds early in development and hopefully work around it. Either way, I just thought the story was interesting because, for one, I didn't realize that the Switch 2 cards were slower than the internal storage, and that could potentially be a bottleneck for some games. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think that the storage speed is the real reason that Ubisoft made the decision, or if they're just saying that so they don't get backlash about the whole keycard situation? Again, let me know down below, and if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification button thing wherever it is, so you know if I want to drop a video or a live stream. And always do at least 2 things at the same time.